Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and get things started today. I want to thank you for being here today. I'm Matt Wallace. I head up marketing at MarcomCentral. So hopefully in the audience, we have some marketers and sales pros, which I think we probably do. And so you guys understand how much this landscape is changing. And the whole idea of Marcom Think Tank is to bring thought leaders in the marketing space to you so you can hear how they're breaking through the noise with new innovation, creativity, new processes, and they're fostering real engagement with real communities. So today's guest speaker exemplifies marketing thought leadership and innovation. Tyler Lessard. Oh yeah, come on, don't be humble.
Stop it.
Tyler Lessard.
Make me blush.
He's the author of the book, The Visual Sale. He's the head of marketing at Vidyard and was recognized by Marketo as one of the top 5 fearless marketers. That's an awesome title. And if you're in San Francisco at that time, you would have seen him on the side of the Moscone Center. It wasn't graffiti, it was a poster, and his mug was up there. Pretty cool. We'll learn more about that in a little bit. So we'll be learning from Tyler about how he and his team founded one of the fastest growing media sub-brands in B2B marketing, SalesFeed. In 10 short months, they published hundreds of pieces of hilarious and thoughtful and educational content. And if you don't already follow SalesFeed, by the end of today, you'll see why you should. Our host for today's session is MarcomCentral's product evangelist, Eric Hazard. He's up there. He's held multiple different roles here at Marcom, and throughout the years, he's contributed to companies and customers all over the world, traveling and helping them onboard and launch brand portals that have made an impact for their clients. So today's discussion, guys, as any kind of webinar these days, is a discussion. We definitely welcome you to chat it up over there in the comments. We're taking questions the whole time, and it's a small enough group to be able to handle that just fine. So please definitely ask questions. And Eric, with that, over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Matt. And welcome, Tyler. We're happy to have you here today. And without kind of cognitive time, so let's just go ahead and jump right in to start it off. Why don't, Tyler, can you give us maybe a brief foundational story, if you will, of SalesFeed and Vidyard, like just to set the stage, so to speak?
I would love to. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. And thanks everybody for joining. And it's great to have you here. And in honor of the second day of summer, we are going to bring the heat here today. We're going to bring the fire. And I hope you walk away with at least 2 or 3 new ideas that you might actually be able to implement yourselves in your businesses in the coming weeks or months, based on what I've learned in launching a media sub-brand as an extension to our core business brand, which is Vidyard. So I can, maybe I'll start with a little bit of an origin story about where we've been in our journey as a marketing organization, as a brand, and what led us to this idea of launching a separate but connected kind of standalone media brand called SalesFeed. My story starts with my life here at Vidyard. So I joined Vidyard about 8 years ago as VP Marketing, and spent quite a bit of time focused on a couple of different areas of the business. Part of it was, of course, building out our demand gen strategies, our inbound and content marketing strategies. We were very much building a new category. In that, at that time, it was the category of video marketing or video hosting and analytics for businesses. And so we also invested in a lot of thought leadership in the early days as a way to not only build our company brand, but to elevate and establish the category, which I'm sure many of you do or think about on a day-to-day basis as well. So, you know, this is Vidyard's website. You can go to it yourself, vidyard.com, learn a little bit more about what we do. But most importantly, I just wanted to show you this is kind of how our core brand exists today. We're a very kind of clean, modern brand, but we've also focused a lot on developing a very strong voice in our market. We are sometimes a little bit funny. We're very approachable, but we also establish ourselves as being very knowledgeable and very trustworthy in this area of video for the use in marketing and as well in the world of sales. So if you, again, if you take a look around our website, we've been at the inbound content, thought leadership, and SEO game for a while. I mean, for those 8 years plus a little bit before I joined the business. And if you do things like take a look in our resources area, you'll find we have pretty extensive content library, which is largely about thought leadership content, research reports. We have, of course, a very active blog, which is really focused on generating inbound traffic related to terms relevant to video, right? So again, in the first number of years, we were really targeting marketers who were interested in how do I better host, manage, and track the performance of my videos. So our real focus as Vidyard has always been that. And if you, again, go around our different content, we have a video selling masterclass and things like that. You'll find a lot of things that we've done to establish that part of the brand. And in recent years, we started to shift audiences. And if you think back to our early days focused on marketers, going back, 5 to 10 years, the real focus was on blog, long form content, a lot of written content, of course, videos as well. But we found that those were the things that really performed well with marketers at that time. We do also have a great and very strong social media presence, but our social media is, I'd say, a little bit more for our existing community of users and customers and ways to connect with them, to share, new ideas and resources and things like that. So that's kind of where we were. And then a couple of years ago, we launched a new product, which was really geared towards sales professionals. So if we hop over here, you can see, Vidyard for Sales. And we really started to dive deep into this audience. And just like we had done with marketers, we built out a pretty extensive content and thought leadership program around video for selling. And we invested in lots of new blogs, lots of new reports, lots of new content for this, like many of you do. And in fact, we've done, I think, again, a really, really strong job. We get around 1 million visits to our website each quarter. Which is a good number for a company our size. We're a few hundred employees, again, about 10 years in. So we found a lot of success. And if you, hop over here into Google, you search for things like video selling, you'll see our team's done a great job, right? We show up as the first, and above HubSpot too, which is incredible. So we've built a great brand authority. So the team has done some really wonderful things. If you search for other similar terms, we'll show up near the top as well. So this is all great, right? We've invested a lot and we drive a lot of inbound traffic. We get a lot of juice from our SEO. We do a lot with thought leadership. Things have been going really, really well for video for marketing and video for sales. But about a year ago, we have grand aspirations, again, like all of you do out there. And we started thinking, what is it that we might be missing in the market? We've got a certain audience that we are reaching when talking about video for marketing and video for sales. This is something I encourage you all to do, hopefully at some degree of frequency, is pause and step back and say, we're trying to build an audience and a community in this certain area of the market. For us, this new area was salespeople. We were trying to attract salespeople. And rightfully so, a lot of our work from a content perspective was focused on the topic of video for sales, because that's what we do. And we dominate that now from an inbound perspective. But we're missing a lot, right? If we think about the only salespeople we're really effectively reaching are those that know about using video in sales or are interested in learning about that as a topic, which really only represents a very small part of the market. Right? If you think about the overall world of salespeople, and this is overrepresentative, right? The number who care about video in sales is like a little dot on this big total addressable market. So we started to think about how could we start to engage and build a community of people outside of this little bubble? People who may not care or know about using video in sales, but someday they might, right? People who we know are in our ICP but aren't yet ready, or maybe they are. Maybe they are already using Vidyard or video, but they're not really engaging with us anymore because they're already doing it and they know what they're doing. And we've lost that opportunity to keep engaging with them. And this is interesting in this like kind of modern digital war, right? Like as everything goes digital first and digital only, mind share is a big deal. And our digital channels are how we get it and keep it. And we're all competing with other content, with other media brands and things like that. So what we decided to do after a lot of discussion was to say, what if we established a quote unquote media brand for the sales community that wasn't about Vidyard or video, but was about the broader world of sales, that would allow us to cast a much wider net, find more of those people in the sales community who may not be looking for tips about how to use video, but who are interested in a lot of other things? Would this be a way to cast a broader net, find a lot more people, bring them into our community, and then start to subtly expose them to video and sales and Vidyard as a brand, as a way to then bring them into our community, as opposed to waiting for them to find us? And in doing that, could we really take a media brand mentality, right? Could we do this in a way that created an audience who not only was now coming to us for other topics, but also were just so rapidly engaged that, on a daily and weekly basis, we were top of mind for them, because it's like a great media brand, right? That we were delivering content that was so resonant for them that they just want to keep engaging, right? Which is something we all want to do. We want to create content that is so resonant that our audience keeps coming back and shares it with others. But it's hard to do when all you're focused on is your niche, right? Like if we're just talking about video and sales, there's only so many different ways I can skin it. And after about 2 weeks, people in our community are like, okay, I've heard it all, Tyler. Enough's enough. I'm moving on. But this now is the idea of liberating us to say, we can talk about all sorts of different topics in sales, right? We can tackle them from lots of different angles and start to build that community and stay top of mind before, during, or after they're ready to be thinking about just video and Vidyard. And to us, the power in that is, again, hey, we're going to find new people, but also later on down the road, and somebody changes jobs, maybe they were using Vidyard before, we're going to be top of mind because they're still going to be engaged with this media brand that we're talking about. So that was really the approach that we took to this. And just to go back a slide here, our goals in doing this, much like any great marketing program, it was kind of like its own little flywheel. This idea, as I alluded to, how can we attract more salespeople into what we're doing? Those who may not be looking for video solutions yet. How do we consistently engage them and keep mind share with them? And then how do we create a compelling reason for them to be advocates for us and to share? And we often think about this kind of flywheel, attract them, keep them engaged, and then drive them to drive others through the lens of our own products and our key content stories. But it was really exciting and invigorating to think about this through the lens of, well, what about just the broad community of sellers? Can we do this in a way that doesn't just shackle us to the topic of video? So as we went about this, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how did we develop the vision for, and then I'm going to share with you what we've actually launched and how it's performing. But I want to give you a little bit of insight into the process we went through as we were ideating on this and trying to kind of figure out, is this going to work and what should it look like? Because the idea of being a media brand for your audience could mean so many different things, right? There's lots of different paths you can go down. So I'll give you a bit of visibility into how we approach this. This is a slide straight from one of my planning docs. We started with a kind of a market review to look at what are other brands, thought leaders, media brands doing in this space already. So let's figure out what's happening today and start to figure out where is there white space that we could have an opportunity to really fill. And so again, the way that you do this will be a little bit different, but in our world, in the world of the sales community, there are a few media sites that are kind of independent third-party sales media brands that publish content, that run events. They may offer training, they might have newsletters. Most of them have, main websites that they bring people to and things like that. There's communities that kind of, sort of self-form or get created. There's experts and there's other things. So we kind of took reference examples of each of these and looked at what kind of content are they putting into the market? Are they actively working with people from across the community? Are they developing training? Are they building actual live communities, events, newsletters? All these different things that different brands could be doing today. And we mapped it out and we found, some pretty interesting things. We found that from a content perspective, at least again in this world, there was an overabundance of blogs, podcasts, and people doing webinars and on-demand webinars. So we knew pretty quickly, that's a very saturated area. But we found that there was a pretty big gap in people doing great video content for this community, and particularly short form video content in effective ways. So that was an interesting one. Secondly, we found that most were not really actively engaging with other contributors from the community, right? They were really just sharing their own voice, There were only a couple that were good examples of bringing in influencers into their content, but they were all doing it through written blogs, right? They'd have blog contributors. And so we already were working with some of those influencers in different ways. And we started talking to them. We're like, how does that work for you? And they're like, yeah, it's okay, but I give them a blog and then that's it and it's done. And we said, well, what if we started to create some really awesome like short form video content and had you in that? Would that be of interest? And they're all like, yes, like I'd love to get my face out there, not just my little, photo and a blog article where you can't even hear my tone. So they're like, yeah, we'd love to get involved in videos as contributors. Nobody else is doing that. Okay, that's interesting. Then another gap we found was newsletters. There are no great newsletters for salespeople. I mean, there's a couple that aren't bad, but in the world of B2B sales and really tech sales was our initial foray, it was really lacking. So we found that as an opportunity. And then we also had a line item here you may be able to see, which is entertainment, which is an interesting one you wouldn't typically think about. But when you think about media brands, obviously entertainment is a big deal. And we found that there was almost nobody producing intentional entertainment content for the sales community, with the exception of a couple, very small, very specific ones that I'll mention in a moment. So that was also an open gap. And then from a distribution standpoint, we found that most of the existing media brands and others were really focused on their websites, on blogs, or on LinkedIn. Very few were focused on social media, really, other than LinkedIn. Nobody was doing TikTok well. Nobody was doing YouTube well. So we found those as opportunities too. So I just wanted to walk you through this because as you think about your own content and media strategy, whether it's for your own brand or a brand extension, think about looking at the market through a lens like this, right? Really do that audit of who's doing what, think a little bit of creatively and find out where those gaps are that you could really lean into. And this actually led us down the path. Like initially I had no preconception about what this media brand should be. In fact, initially I thought it was going to be a really great website with amazing content. But we found that the opportunity really existed in some of these different areas that weren't being serviced. So that's just a template, that's sort of how we thought about it. You could probably do something a little bit better. We also looked at, during the research stage, we looked at some other ones that are considered media brands in our space, of course, but also ones in similar spaces where we've seen some interesting activity. Many of you may know Adobe has owned and managed CMO.com as a standalone media site for a long time. Now, they actually recently kind of shut that down and redirected it to Adobe's blog. But that was interesting for them for a number of years where they had this separate media brand for marketers that was really brought to you by Adobe. HubSpot acquired the Hustle newsletter, you may know, which was an interesting one, right? That's really, again, a media brand with a focus on a newsletter where they're now trying to reach a broader audience of people outside of the HubSpot sphere. Outreach in our world, in the sales world, did the same thing with Sales Hacker. They acquired Sales Hacker as a media brand and they still run it as a separate branded entity. So there are these other examples of people doing this already, and we took some, sort of insights from those. Now, the perhaps most important thing we then did, and this is the last piece of research I want to highlight as you think about, if you're going to do some of the things we talked about, we looked at the landscape, we looked at some things happening in tangential markets, and then we actually sat down and we talked to a whole bunch of salespeople because this was going to be our target audience. And we asked them questions, we surveyed them about what type of content do you really like to engage with? What kind of podcasts do you follow and really like? Who do you follow on LinkedIn? Who do you follow? Or what social channels are you active on in both your business and your personal life, right? We sort of asked a lot of different questions to get a sense for where do these people really interact? And the interesting thing we found, now this was we're targeting sales people, individual reps. Our primary audience is them, not the sales leaders. So if we had focused on just sales leaders, we probably would have heard something slightly different. Right? Our inkling is that sales leaders do read more long form blogs. They attend long form webinars. They're doing more learning. They might, I'm not sure. But sales individuals, no way. They were all like, I can't read a blog post for the life of me. Like I lose interest 2 paragraphs in, so don't give me another bunch of long form blogs. They're like, I don't join long webinars. I like short podcasts and I like short tips that are pushed to me in my social feed. And I like short form videos. They also like newsletters, right? So it came down to a bunch of these things that are pushed to them, right? They're like a set it and forget it crowd. They're like, I'm not going out looking to learn, but if stuff comes my way, I'll engage with it. So that was interesting. And we also found, as we dug a little bit more into some of the top social brands in sales, this one blew me away. I had no idea. After Salesforce, the sales related LinkedIn account that has the most followers as well as Instagram is an account called Sales Humor. They have over 500,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it's a meme channel, right? It's a great meme channel. It's been around for years. But like almost every sales rep I talked to mentioned it. They're like, I follow this influencer, I listen to this podcast. Oh, and I follow Sales Humor for a good meme every day. A lot also mentioned Corporate Bro, who does sales skits and is very much sales humor. So this was also a really cool insight for us. We went, all right, so sales reps really like shorter content pushed to them, and they do like short tips, but they also like humor, which we all love humor, right? But we realized this was actually an even more important part for salespeople, and we realized that it's largely because sales is rough, right? Sales is a tough, stressful job. I mean, every job is stressful. But again, as we just learn more about our audience, these sorts of things really connected. We're like, yeah, you know what? Like you're getting hung up on all day long. You're like, you know, you don't know if you're going to hit quota. Your comp is tied to it, right? All these things, sales is really stressful. It creates a lot of camaraderie within the sales community. It also creates a need for levity and laughter, you know, to try to keep people motivated and incentivized. And so that was the last piece we realized we could really lean into. We said, you know what? There's a couple doing humor, but not that many, and nobody really doing it as part of their business. So that's how we kind of came to what we're doing, which is called SalesFeed, right? We overlaid the white space that we found with the interests of the audience. We took cues from what's been working for some others, and we decided to create something that was very different. And it's a media brand we're now calling SalesFeed. I'll talk in a few minutes about why we decided to do a separate brand from just expanding what Vidyard is. Eric, do you want me to dive right in and show a little bit of what SalesFeed is really all about, or do you have any other questions before I hop into that?
Yeah, no, I would love to look at SalesFeed. I do have some questions though. I know when we spoke earlier and you brought it back up, it's great when you talk about like these supply and demand gaps. Yeah. Like putting yourself in the shoes of your audience. Was this process, was it hard to get buy-in from other executives to say this is what we need to create inside the organization? Was that a difficult challenge?
Yes and no is the cop-out answer I'll give you right now. So in some ways, I knew going into this that it was going to be a hard sell. So when you have that mindset, right, it kind of forces you to do a little bit more of this. You know, some of that background work I showed you, I mean, those are a few slides from like, you know, 100-slide deck that, you know, really I got as much as I could down on paper to be able to. Then I curated it into almost like a pitch internally to really help walk people through, right? Don't just go in and say, hey, we want to launch a new media brand. And they're like, what? Start with kind of the why. And which I did, right? We sort of started from that very beginning, almost of what I presented here, right? You bring up that map and you're like, does everybody nod along when I say, you know, less than 1% of salespeople are ever going to care about or know about video and sales? And they're all like, of course. And you're like, wouldn't you rather get a bigger slice of this pie of salespeople so that in 2 years, when they need to know about video, we're top of mind? Everybody's like, of course we do. Say, well, how can we get that mind share today for those who don't even know that they need video? Well, and then we kind of walk through it. So being able to tell that story and have some of that validation really helps. And then also being able to demonstrate, like, again, as I talk through the strategy, this is why we want to take the strategy this way, because we've identified this gap in demand from the market and supply, these white spaces. So that's a really important piece to it. And then I'll touch on a couple others as we go here in terms of like, how did we think about the connection back to the ROI to Vidyard? Because again, that one's a little bit looser and one that is a tricky one to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's jump into the SalesFeed, Tyler.
All right, let's dive into it. What we've actually done. So we do have a website for SalesFeed that is kind of just our home base. It's not a place that we really drive people to. It's not a content repository, if you will. It's a home base for anybody that we want to sort of give a starting point for what is SalesFeed and how to follow us. So you can feel free to check it out yourselves at salesfeedmedia.com. Here you'll see we have some of our featured content that we've been publishing. But most importantly, this is where you can just find each of our social channels. So we did decide, again, to really lean into the different social channels, as well as the link to subscribe to our newsletter, which is a really key anchor part of it. And again, based on our research, we landed on, we wanted to make the most successful newsletter, YouTube channel, TikTok channel, and hopefully LinkedIn channel, because it's important, but very competitive for the sales community. That's where we found the opportunity. So that's where we decided to really focus on investing with this media brand. So here is where you can kind of find and get out to each of those. And you can also get a bit of a taste for what is SalesFeed all about. But let's take a look at some of the stuff we've been doing to give you a sense for like, how does this stuff all come together? Now, I mentioned that we are doing a mix of both education and entertainment. And we found sales reps want both. They want tips, actionable tips, and they also want to be entertained. And we kind of landed on learn and laugh as a really simple foundation for this media brand. Our tagline for Sales Feed is your fuel for a better life in sales. And part of the extended tagline is to have a better life in sales, you need to learn, you need to laugh. You need to be better at what you do, and you need to enjoy it more. And so we're here with that fuel. Daily and weekly tips, daily and weekly laughs. That's our promise as a media brand. And so what you'll find in our content is that, well, it hopefully kind of lives up to that standard. So I'll hop over first to our TikTok channel, where we are producing daily content specifically for TikTok. And you'll immediately see here as I hop on over, first of all, this launched in October. So in about 9 months, we have garnered over 46,000 followers to our Sales Feed TikTok channel. You can see here, we say brought to you by Vidyard. So for those who are paying attention and dive in, you will find various Vidyard references throughout that expose you to the brand very subtly. But we think about this as very much top of funnel for Sales Feed. This is where we're finding people by using different hashtags and different type of content to attract them in. But to make TikTok, we knew we wanted TikTok to be a successful channel for us because we knew salespeople were there and there was a big opportunity. So we actually started by hiring the right person. Face you can see in most of our TikToks and a lot of our other content is a gentleman named Will Aitken. And this was actually my first big lesson learned in doing this. When we went to launch this, we wanted it to be representative of the sales community. I hired, as my first hire, a sales evangelist, which is Will, who was a salesperson until I hired him. So he has spent years in sales, very successful account executive, who also had a very successful personal sales TikTok account. So he had already been doing some of this, and I could tell that he was somebody who was great at sales, but also was really a creator at heart. And so I brought him into the team as a full-time creator for this media brand. So he's creating daily TikToks. You'll see him in a lot of our other content as well. But you can see by bringing Will in, who knew what he was doing already, all of our TikToks get thousands and thousands, and this one's almost 200,000, and that went out last week. And you'll find, again, the engagement is just through the roof on this content. But let me show you how we do learn and laugh. So I'm actually going to scroll to the bottom to show you where we started. You can see there's a lot here. I also made some appearances with my beautiful fake mustache. Now, here's a great example of learns and laughs. So one of our most successful TikTok videos, this has over 400,000 views. This is me. I'll just quickly play it for you. Hopefully you can hear the audio. 18 p.m., Tim. Sorry, let me start it over here. Time to talk right now. I'm just going into a meeting. Oh, really? One of those weekly team meetings that starts right at 2:18 p.m., Tim. Maybe you can pop open your calendar and see if we can find 30 minutes for you to come on over here and help me clean up my office, because my bullshit meter just exploded all over the place. I don't have time to talk right. So this was a series we called Objection Handling, where we say what, a sales rep really wants to say when somebody gives them an objection, but can't because, but we have the liberty to do that. And we found, this is something we're just like, let's make the sales community laugh. It did, and has over 400,000 views. And, I still get comments for people asking me, where's my mustache? Because they've seen it so many times. So there's that's the laugh. But now look at our most viewed video. Let me scroll up here. It is this one right here, Sales Help Desk. So this one has 930,000 views, almost 1 million. And this was a learn piece. So this is where basically somebody asks a question and Will answers it in the video. So let me just play that one quickly here for you.
How can we help you sell more today?
Hey, yeah, whenever I ask for sale, people tell me they need to think about it.
Sure. And what do you say when people tell you that?
I ask if there's anything I can do to help, and they say no.
And then what happens?
Well, then they ghost me. I never hear from them again.
Yeah, I could have guessed. Try and say this instead. I totally understand if you need some time to think this over. However, when I've heard that from people in the past, it's actually meant one of two things. First of all, they're not really interested, but they're just too nice to tell me. Alternatively, we've missed something important in the conversation here today, but they're still unsure about. Which one of those two things is more true to you? Thanks for.
So that's it, right? There was a tip on how to handle a certain objection. packed it into like 30 seconds, the TikTok format. And it's something that people will watch 2 or 3 times because they want to go back and like, oh, that sounded good. Now let me take some notes. They drop a little like on it and it goes, semi-viral for this kind of content. And we found that this balance of learn and laughs have worked really, really well. Some people come for the learns and stay for the laughs, some the other way around. And this is what I say when we take like a media brand mentality, right? Like this is the kind of stuff that, there's some entertainment built in here. But this is all stuff done specifically for TikTok, not for other channels, but as a way to build up this community. And it's been super successful. What do you think, Eric? Do you like the mustache?
I love that mustache. I almost wore one today, but I couldn't grow it out in time for you.
One of the other cool things that we've done that I'm really proud of is as part of making this media brand called SalesFeed, we're distancing it a little bit from Vidyard, also as a way to make it something where we can involve more people from the community in it, including influencers and things like that. So as you scroll up, you'll see a lot of content features Will, a number feature myself as well. But we have started to get more and more videos. Here's one from Morgan Ingram, who is a thought leader in this space, has a great following. Nick Capozzi, you can see some of his videos have 20,000 plus views. Jason Bay, this one from Bilal Batrawi, Gabrielle Blackwell. So these are all influencers in our sales community who we've done some short content with and are bringing them onto our TikTok channel. And so as a media brand, we've kind of got this platform to bring these people to the forefront. If I had reached out to them and said, would you do a TikTok for Vidyard's channel? They probably would have said, yeah, how much are you going to pay me? But in this case, they're like, oh, SalesFeed, I love what you're doing. Love it. It's amazing. How can I get on it? Right. And we actually have people reaching out and asking us, how can I get on SalesFeed? My sense is they want to be attached to it because it does have this unique growing brand in the community and it's not tied to a vendor. It's not the Vidyard channel. It's this separate thing that really does seem like it is for the community, which of course it is, but brought to you by Vidyard.
So Tyler, let me ask you this. How do you find the sweet spot in that humor, right? I mean, you'd think that like the format of TikTok with 30 seconds learn is hard enough to cram, but where do you like the self that, nobody's safe from the humor. You guys are, pointing it all out, guns a-blazing. So
it's tough.
How do you not offend?
Well, yeah, sometimes we do, right? And that's also part of one of the reasons why we felt we could do this. We could say, if we run SalesFeed as this separate brand and we want to make humor a part of it, is also one of the things that, as we thought about why do we run it as a separate brand? One is to make it, mitigate the risk that people feel it's biased towards, a certain technology vendor, which we're conscious to not make it. The second is to ensure they don't think we're just going to be talking about video because we're Vidyard. But one of the other pieces is to give us some liberty to be a little bit riskier because we felt that was important to be an entertainment brand for this community. And entertainment is hard, right? Yeah, you can easily offend people with the wrong kind of humor. And so this gives us a little bit of that buffer, right? Because we also want to mitigate impact on our existing community. Some of the content we do here, if this was core content on the Vidyard channel, we would very much run the risk of alienating some of our core users because they're following us for different reasons, right? And many of you will know that. They'll follow you on your social channels because they want to keep up to date on news. They want to see what you're sharing. Maybe they're going there to get support from you. So in this case, it gives us this secondary channel to be a little bit more creative for those that are drawn to that. And we've absolutely offended people. There are swears in some of these videos. Some of them are the most engaged because some people get drawn to that. So, having that balance, and I'm not saying all of you should do that. You should necessarily start creating content where people are dropping F-bombs. But again, depending on the kind of brand, if you do this as the standalone media brand, it gives you that liberty to create a slightly separate identity that can take a little bit more risks if you feel that's important for your community.
Yeah. We've definitely seen that shift, especially in writing these days, right? It's really about writing how you speak, not how you're supposed to speak, right? It's really about using everyday language. And especially with salespeople, I think you probably more common language than not, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the big word I always think about with this, and I encourage all of you to, write it down on a sticky note and slap it on your monitors, is resonance. All right. Like, I don't think we talk about resonance enough in the world of marketing. We talk a lot about, personalization and being contextual and all these things, but all of those are actually trying to ladder up to this greater concept of resonance. Is this piece of content, this message, this video, whatever it is, how well is it going to resonate with my audience? And resonance will go up the more targeted, the more timely, the more relevant that it is. But also part of resonance is how it makes people feel, right?
Right.
And a lot of that can come through in how it's packaged up. Some of these videos have just the highest resonance with people. They're like, oh my gosh, you get me. Like we see that all the time in the comments, like, OMG, you get me. This is so relatable. Heart, 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 laugh, 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 right? And that kind of resonance is really, really powerful because they're the people who smash the like button, who leave the comment, who share it with other people and bring them into the community, right? Our research reports don't do that, right? Our research reports do serve different purposes. But when you talk about that notion of like really high resonance, how it's packaged, how it connects with people is really important. And that's where some of these things can do really, really well, whether it's for your main social channels or a media brand like this.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned bringing Will on, and that was like the big kind of first big, maybe the cornerstone, if you will, your foundation. Yep. But the team that you assembled is got to be vastly different than the team from Vidyard. When you're building a media brand, is there different components to that team that you're looking at?
A little bit. And this goes to, again, what does the media brand mean to you? Because not every media brand is going to be the same. But for us, as we recognized, we want to be the leaders in sellertainment, is what we call entertainment for salespeople. So we want to be the leaders in sellertainment. We want to have the best TikTok and YouTube channels in the space because the opportunities are there, and we need the best newsletter. That drove how we built the team. So I hired in Will as both a content expert to ensure our content would be the most relevant to our audience, as well as our TikTok lead. We have an editor-in-chief who runs our newsletter, and she is fantastic. She also does a lot of show running and planning for a lot of our other content. And we have a lead producer because a lot of what we do is, of course, video, both this, but also things like I'll show you on our YouTube channel where we're trying to establish some very strong thought leadership in video content. So the way we built this team certainly was different. And we used it we had the liberty of knowing ahead of time, this is what we're trying to build. Let's assemble a team that is best equipped to do that, as opposed to just hiring a general social media manager or a general content writer.
Right.
So again, we had a bit of the luxury of kind of knowing where we wanted to go when we made those decisions, but wow, has it paid off, and that team really, really gels together. But you'll see here, and there's a question about key metrics for success. So I'll kind of work you into that now, because for some of these channels, things like TikTok, here's our Instagram channel. We've just crested 1,000 followers on Instagram. It's a combination of memes and reels. A lot of the reels are the same content we put on TikTok, but repurposed as a reel. Some of it is unique for Instagram, but a lot of it is crossover content. For things like TikTok and Instagram, the real key metric here is followers and engagement. So we look at monthly engagement metrics to make sure that we are actively engaging that audience. Because 40,000 followers, but if none of them are actually interacting anymore, that can happen because your content's getting stale. They're useless to us, right? We need to keep those people consistently engaged. So we look at those two things, follower count and monthly engagement. And engagement metrics are different per platform. So you got to figure out what those are, but you can get them, right? So those are the key metrics for these channels. Things like our YouTube channel, which I'll show you here. Similarly, we look at our subscriber base. So we're at about 1.3 thousand subscribers after 10 months or so. We do a variety of content here, not just entertainment and short form education, but we also have stuff that's a little bit longer form. We do a series called Sales Stuff Explained. That's 8 to 10 minute, really beautifully produced explainers for the sales community and some others. You can feel free to peruse our YouTube channel to see what we're up to. But in this case as well, we're looking at subscriber numbers. We're obviously looking at how different content is performing, but we're also looking at, again, monthly engagement, which in this case would be view time, hours watched each month, because that is a better signal of health of the community that we've brought into here, more so than just the subscriber number. So every quarter we have a target to increase our total engagement on each of these channels by a certain amount. And that drives us to make sure we're creating quality content, not just high quantity. And the final thing that all of these things drive to, as you follow us on TikTok, as you follow us on Instagram, find us on YouTube, or follow us on LinkedIn, our last social channel where we are at just about 10,000 followers after 10 months, which I'm very proud of. The final bottom of our funnel is all of these drive people to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. The weekly newsletter is the second most important metric. More important than followers on the other channels, because once you subscribe to the Sales Feed newsletter, now we've got your email address and we have a way to directly engage with you on a consistent week over week basis. So we look at followers, engagement for all these other channels, but we also work in a lot of things to connect those people back to our newsletter. Our newsletter subscribers, our engagement then become a really important metric. And from the newsletter, this is what our newsletter looks like. This was today's that got dropped in my inbox. We've got some feature content, sales feed original recipes. And then towards the bottom, you'll see that we've got a nice little promo here for Vidyard. So this is kind of our bottom of funnel. So people who subscribe to the newsletter are engaging week over week with us. And this is where we inject more directly the Vidyard brand. And we also feature content that's often related to video in sales. So now those people who came for different learns and laughs are getting exposed to using video in sales. And in fact, today we just dropped one on one of our series called Sales Tech Talks. Will did a review of, guess which tool? Finally, he reviewed Vidyard. He's done a series where he's reviewed all these other tech tools. We said, you know what? It's time for you to review Vidyard. And he's very transparent in it. He says, look, I work at Vidyard. We're a part of Vidyard. But hey, I wanted to show you how it works. These are a lot of the different things that we do to then sort of bring people down the funnel. And our main metrics, followers and subscribers and engagement at the top level, newsletter subs and engagement at that next level, and then finally conversions to Vidyard signups, conversions to Vidyard landing pages because we're promoting a piece of Vidyard content, or maybe a piece of content like this that in it actually tells you, if you're interested in doing this, sign up for Vidyard today, and we track those through as well. So we've kind of created this funnel where out the bottom, we're getting more people exposed to Vidyard, but again, in a very organic way that doesn't make me need to take a shower at the end of the day.
I love that. I really do. I had a question here from our lawyers. They want to know if sellertainment is trademarked.
It is in the process of being trademarked, and I am 100% serious about that. So yes, I am in the process of trademarking sellertainment. I'm very proud of that one. Thank you. Thanks for catching that.
That's great. That's great. In all these different platforms, I mean, different following counts, of course, different audiences. Is there one stream that gives you more traction than the other in your conversions, or that you're, bottom of the funnel? Is there one that works better than the other, or is it just an ever-moving needle that you're chasing?
Yeah, it's a bit of an ever-moving needle. So what we've learned so far is that, the newsletter, it has become this, main conversion point. And, I can't say that we're generating thousands of new Vidyard customers yet through this initiative. But for our community, it really does depend on where your audience lives, I think. We have found LinkedIn to be a very highly engaged and also one that converts well to Vidyard related things. And for us, that's, in good part because salespeople, our audience, LinkedIn is a key channel for them. And a lot of them are there consistently and interact with us there as they're doing it. So that's become a really important channel for us. That's a little bit further bottom of funnel, if you will. TikTok, as an example, is a very top of funnel sort of channel. And I think it always will be for us B2B brands. We don't yet know who are those 40,000 plus people following us, right? Like, who are these people? But what we do know is we focus on using hashtags specific to B2B sales. And so that's finding people based on those hashtags, and based on the comments, we know we're reaching a lot of salespeople out there. We do have, again, links in our bio there to connect people to our newsletter and to convert them to Vidyard. We do see clicks through to those, not as high as we want them yet, but we're testing now, seeding other content in there to try to convert that TikTok audience into some of the other things that we want to do. So it is a lot of trial and error, like any social media program or content program, but we're learning as we go, and we are, but I am confident in things like the newsletter is a really strong kind of bottom of funnel conversion centric piece. For us, the newsletter brings you the best from across sales feed every week. And yes, you're going to get a little bit, Vidyard awareness built in there as you do it. So that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I still have to ask though, so how does a kid from Waterloo, Ontario go all the way to get their face on the Marconi Convention Center, right? In San Francisco? Tell me the arc. How does that even happen?
Mom, I made it. So yeah, that was a funny story to start with during the intro. And it is relevant to sales feed and for all of you out there, trust me. So a number of years ago, Marketo at the time, before they were acquired by Adobe, they ran a program called their Fearless 50 Marketers. And the first year they did it, they opened it up for submissions and they said, hey, do you think you're a fearless marketer? We'd love to hear your story. to apply to be one of our 50 Fearless 50, you had to submit a video on social media. You had to post it on LinkedIn and tag them. And that was how you would submit. And so I was like, okay, this sounds cool. You know, I might want to throw my hat in the ring. We do some pretty cool stuff here I'm proud of. But I started to see all the submissions, and because they were on social, they were all very transparent. And so I'd start to look at all of them, and they were all the same thing. Like, no offense to other submitters, but they were all somebody just talking to their camera like, hey, this is me. I'm really proud of this. I think I should be for this. And, you know, they were nice. But I was like, you know, I'm the video guy. So I'm like, all right, I can do a little bit better than that. So I made a video that was actually a parody version of the Imagine Dragons song, Whatever It Takes. And I wrote some of my own lyrics to it. And so basically, you know, the chorus was like about, you know, I'll do whatever it takes to get the attention of my audience, and showed some of our more bold campaigns. And I made a fun little music video out of it. And like, you know, it didn't take me long. I'm a hacky video guy. It's just, you know, I think I was on a trip. I did it in a hotel over like, you know, one night I was bored. And I submitted that and I put it up. I'm like, hey, Marketo, watch out. You know, I'm one of your Fearless 50. That post got so much engagement, so many likes, including people from Marketo who are all like, OMG, this is the best. That, you know, I got into not only their Fearless 50, but into their top 5 that they invited to be at the conference and be in a keynote and stuff. The funny thing was, you know, the dirty little secret is I don't think they ever looked at any of my accolades as a marketer. I think they just thought my video was so damn good that I deserved to be on that list. Not to sell myself short. But after that, I was like, why am I doing other things, right? And now, sure enough, with Sales Feed, we're picking up right from there. We're doing parody music videos, and people are like, this is the best, right? We just did a parody version of the song Ridin' Dirty by Chameleonaire, the old rap song. Some of you may remember, "You're gonna catch me riding dirty." And we changed that into Writin' Dirty, a little fun song about how sales reps need to be careful not to be writing dirty, as in like copy and pasting and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it gets hundreds and hundreds of reactions and like 100 plus comments, and, you know, it's highly resonant content. So anyways, that's a bit of that fun story there. But I think it's such a good micro example of the power of being a little bit more creative, thinking like a media company, thinking about that merger of entertainment with your audience and education. If you're not making memes, if you're not making fun little things that people can go like, oh, I totally get that. I think now's the time, whether you do it as a media brand or whether you just do it as part of your own core brand, just try to have some levity, connect with people in different ways, and it can really work well.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic lesson about what can springboard to other things. I mean, that's really keep yourself open, but keep laughing and keep learning, right? I mean, seems like a pretty easy equation.
Yeah, and you know, one of the people I learned from early on in watching them online was Mark Jung, the VP of Marketing at Sales Impact Academy, coming soon. I'm glad to see that. So I've been following Mark since his days at Dooley. We actually collaborated on some music videos back in the day.
That's awesome.
And he is outstanding. And I'm sure Amanda is even more outstanding. Yeah. But you've got some heavy hitters here, and some great people have influenced and inspired myself as well. So it's it's great. It's you know, think about this stuff. And if any of you watching or listening, if you want to pick my brain anymore, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Fire me a message. I'm happy to chat if you have questions about what we're doing, or of course, just, you know, check out Sales Feed, follow our newsletter, and just to keep up with what we're doing. Maybe we'll inspire you with some ideas, and share with your sales team, right? Throw me a bone, get me some more salespeople following our stuff so I can hit my targets too. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Tyler. Like I said, we really appreciate you kicking off here our first season of Think Tank. Really, really great session.